practice principles. Caught in a self-centered dream, only suffering, waking to a dream within a dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Ordinary Mind. It's a Zen school, the Ordinary Mind Zen school. It's a practice, Ordinary Mind Zen practice. And from time to time it's really good to review our practice. We can cover it just from the side of practice. This is what we do. There are sort of techniques, sort of a method. But equally, why is it like that? What's it for? Is the history important? Is the biography of our founder, Joko Beck, important? Is the specific context, California in the later years of the last century, is that important? Or is it its connection with almost 2,000 years of Zen practice? What's important? What do I need to know? What do I need to do? And I think really all of those things are important. And obviously we can only talk about a fraction of them. And certainly in one Dharma talk. So we can almost say, well, what's the heart of it? Maybe tonight, here, I'd say, paying attention. Paying attention to our experiencing, to, as the practice principles say, life as it is. As being a teacher, our only teacher, the practice principles say. And in a sense, it. We're always, Zen, well, it. Just this, whatever we want to call it, whatever we want to characterize that. The actual experiencing of life as it is. But obviously, putting it so generally, we're not really saying anything, are we? So let's think about other ways of saying this. Well, aren't we paying attention the whole time? Well, obviously not. We miss a lot. But actually, all the time, we take in everything. We register everything. But are we aware of it? Well, obviously, most things we actually aren't aware of. Either because they're technically redundant. We know that's the way it is. You listen to the background hum, disappears. Why? Well, it's continuous. I don't notice it. That's one thing. And there's so many aspects which we don't notice, or we stop noticing, or we don't want to notice. And in a sense, that's where it gets interesting, because we register everything, and everything affects us. And yet so much of our experiencing, or our potential experiencing, we dissociate from, we park it over there. Yeah, my body's aware of it. It's maybe doing something in the back of my mind, but I'm not aware of it. I'll park it, push it over there. So we miss so much of what is happening in our sensorium, and that's why, basic kind of body practices, what comes up in mindfulness as body scans, or just really being aware of what you're hearing in its full richness, its full wonder, at the same time as being really aware of how my body's experiencing being sat on this cushion, the pressure in my bum, the tension in my knee muscles, etc., etc., etc. And. What I'm smelling, what I'm tasting. And of course the thoughts, the emotions that are rising and fading as I'm experiencing this body in this moment of my life as it is. it gets interesting is really where we begin to experience resistance, where we become aware that we're not connecting, that we're not experiencing. We probably don't think it through as far as realising we're dissociating from it, but every time I feel difficulty, every time I feel dis-ease, every time I feel pain, every time I feel stress, Buddhism has a word for this. It's dukkha, which we translate as suffering. That's one way of approaching it, but it's everything which is uncomfortable, wrong. Whether that's some tragic event or just the fly buzzing or, and the Buddha says it, birth is dukkha, death is dukkha. It goes on, not getting what we want, getting what we don't want. And so it's really here. It's where we're registering resistance, and I can actually feel this resistance in my body and my emotions. As I say, I want to turn away from it. Turn away from my life as it is. And if I'm doing that, I'm turning away from, reality. And if this practice is about experiencing reality, reality isn't out there, it isn't behind some curtain or above some cloud. Reality is simply not turning away, not dissociating intentionally or even unintentionally from this experience. Why do we do this? Kind of an idiot question, but the answer is really, really, really important. And this was one of our founder Joko Beck's, key insights. Why do we turn away from suffering? Because we don't want to experience it. Why do we turn away from experiencing? Well, all suffering, all pain is useful. Our pain reflex is really useful. I put my hand in the fire. It hurts. Now, normally, the point is not, oh yes, I'm going to experience my flesh melting. No, the experience is turn away. Get your hand out of there. Now, move. And all of this dukkha, all of these experiences that we turn away from, emotions, or really emotions because it's emotion which is driving this fear, anger, shame, despair, hopelessness. It's emotion which is driving all of these is because they're do something. You feel bad, do something, move. If it's a question of putting my hand in the flame, well, that's easy. Sorted. The point is that so much of life is not that simple. Our difficulties, our problems, it may be that the pain in my knee is chronic. It just doesn't go away whatever I do. It may be that, the relationship with the love of my life just isn't working whatever I do. It may be that I've fallen out with my children. It may be my job. It may be ... Stuff which maybe I can do something about and quite likely I can't. So what do? We think. I can think my way out of this. Or we take action. I can act my way out of this. But it's not the right response, but it's really the only one I've got. Because this is a do something about it. You're suffering. Do something about it. And so in the madness that is Zen, I'm suffering. Don't do anything about it. Or, that's too simple. And that's almost the basic error which we're liable to make. But we'll come back to that. It's don't do something about it now. Don't turn away from the experience of it. Stay with the experience of it. Stay with that tightness. Stay with that tension. Stay with that screaming need to move, to act, to speak, to run away, to thump somebody, to sob uncontrollably, to the extent that you can, contain yourself. And it seems mad that that should be our practice. And as Joko Beck used to say, it takes, on average, people come with all kinds of ideas. It takes them about 5 years to really understand that when I say this is the practice, this is the practice. And once they do that, they leave. They go and find another teacher. The Dalai Lama comes to town. These days they watch more YouTube videos. Find another teacher, one that tells me what I want to hear. That's fine. And of course we do that. But if we're willing to stick with it, if we're willing to stick with the practice, life changes. And this is the difficulty again. Oh, so it's for something. Well, yes and no, because this just experiencing of, well, if we want to get fancy, we can call the absolute, or we can call reality. This really is the practice, isn't it? Because the stuff that we don't like hurts, and we don't like it because it hurts, it's painful. Joko talked about this in terms of becoming ABC, a bigger container. And that's really a kind of core idea, because literally I feel something nasty and I'm gone. And it takes us a lot of practice, a lot of coming back, a lot of hours or half hours or 10 minutes or 5 minutes or just moments spent connecting up with this suffering. And this sounds very negative, and in some ways Joko has his reputation as quite a gloomy teacher, but it's not actually gloomy, it's not actually negative in any respect at all. It's just, once we begin to get to grips with this stuff, it ceases to be the problem that it was. And to perhaps sound like I'm talking very glibly, but I'm not. This is 100% absolutely serious. In my own teacher, Barry Majid's words, it becomes not a problem to have problems, or at any rate, less of a problem to have problems. Why? Well, because in terms of what I'm always banging on about, I see that there is not the world on one side and my life out there and this me that just continues. I see the whole thing is me. I'm part of the whole thing. I'm not separate with the world. And that changes things, but that's a big idea, and that's not what we're talking about right now. So ABC, a bigger container, for that sore knee, for that thing that's worrying me. Might be the mortgage interest rate. Might be I keep coming back and back and back and back to that. There's nothing I can do about it. Maybe there is, and if there is, just do it. But there's no point coming back and back and back and turning. There's no point in allowing my body to become a mass of tension or frozen or starting to shout at people or whatever. Because I'm not just willing to be with this. And to the extent that I can really be with this, the crazy thoughts, the repetitive thoughts, all the kind of chains begin to slacken. It may be in a moment, it may be decades. We find ease, we find moments. So it's about finding ease, it's about becoming calm. Well, no, it's simply about experiencing. Really experiencing our experience, not turning away, not dissociating from it. And life kind of presents itself almost as a series of koans. We're going to use Zen terms again, these intractable problems that present us with a choice between a rock and a hard place where there's no way out. And with koans, The temptation is always to try and think it through. There must be something clever. And the point is, no. There's no clever way out of this. There's no clever solution. There's simply the experiencing of this and then finding a different way to go. And one of Joko's basic points, which I will return to, is that this is the form of our lives. That our lives effectively are deep, profound koans, seemingly intractable problems that we create to the degree that we do create them through the direction that we approach them from. Can we see them differently? Can we experience them differently? And the key to that is always through the literal experience of the feelings, the emotions, the thoughts that they produce. So our practice is not about learning about a future, learning about an elsewhere, but always what's happening in this body mind, right now. It always begins from this moment. My practice starts from where I am. And that's a really radical thought, because so much of our lives are spent projecting into the future. And in this respect, Joko's teaching is really radical, not unparalleled. And again, that's something which we will begin to explore. Starting from right now, there is nowhere to go, nowhere that I'm trying to get to, no state I'm trying to reach, no fantasized fixing up, no solution. And in fact, all of those thoughts, all of those experiences, all of those temptations, all of those fantasies, they're not wrong, they're not bad, they're just, as they come up, they're more material for my practice, more to experience, more to learn to hold, more to gain insight about, because sitting with the experiencing of these thoughts, these feelings, these emotions, for hours or minutes, insight can come quickly, it can come incredibly slowly. Days, weeks, months, years, decades. It arises when it arises. But we're shown connections, we're shown patternings, we're shown our priorities. So this may be very different from what we're expecting and what we think we're looking for. This is a resolutely everyday practice, ordinary mind. So it's not about the idea of being a lay monk. It's not about the idea of leading a spiritual life as opposed to a life in the world. It's not about leading a good life. It's not about being nice. It's not actually about any of these things. It's about letting life as it is be my teacher through the direct experiencing of my reality and seeing what happens. And that is, in its sense, and it's a word we might or might not like, a religious practice. And again, go back to my own teacher, Barry Majid, who has a slightly contrarian streak, so you'll understand the spirit in which he says this. People like to say they're not religious, but they are spiritual. I'm not spiritual, but I am religious. It's a practice. And that's what Barry's trying to point to. It's something we do. It's not about me finding some wonderful inner path. It's a practice, and it shows you things, and it makes changes, and it's about the way you engage with the world. But through our lives just as they are. Nothing special, to use a very Zen term. Okay, so a little context, a little history. The approach that I'm outlining really brings together two streams of Zen, the two main streams of Zen. Soto school on the one side and the Rinzai school on the other. Two long-standing but in many ways completely separate lineages or strains or schools of Japanese Zen. Soto Zen emphasizes silent illumination, just sitting. That's the just experiencing, the just awareness side. Just pay attention to what's happening now. Nowhere to go, no need to do anything. Receptive. As Dogen says, you don't go out to things, you allow things to come to you. Other side, Rinzai school, the school of effort, the school of koan study. What is the sound of one hand? Sit with it, sit with it, sit with it. Well, it's like this, teacher. No, go away. Well, no, go, and struggle. And based on the idea of kensho, breakthrough, suddenly I see reality as it is. And absolutely obsessive with kensho, this transformational realizing experience. Very different approaches. So the lineage which actually combined these two approaches, fused them in, for our purposes, Hakon Yasutani, Japanese, obviously, Zen, Soto priest, then lay Zen teacher, founded one of the first Japanese lay lineages that's outside the monastic tradition. Horror. And it's that school, and again, only formally began in 1954, Sambo Kyorden, from which, most of the Zen lineages in the West which aren't straightforward Soto, most of them are in some ways offshoots of Sambo Kyorden. One of his key students was Kun Yamada, and one of his key students was Taizan Maizumi. And again, Maizumi's probably, in terms of just connections and the way that teachers and students all link up, maybe the most influential Japanese Zen teacher in the West. So many teachers from this lineage. Problems. Great, highly respected, wonderful Japanese Zen teachers. We are so fortunate. And they were great teachers. But Yasutani, the founder of our lineage, was, effectively a militarist, anti-Zionist, fascist, huge supporter of Japanese imperialism during the Second World War. Maizumi, Joko Beck's teacher, was an alcoholic, serial abuser of his female students. What do we do about that? Well, exactly as I was trying to talk about in terms of taking out Han's famous phrase, don't talk to me about enlightenment, talk to me about enlightened about. And clearly you can be a very distinguished, hugely realised teacher in some dimensions, and completely not in others. The problem with these lineages was that both they and their students seemed to think that because they were wonderful enlightened teachers, normal rules didn't apply to them. And so Sanghas venerated their wonderful teachers, and their wonderful teachers behaved as they felt driven to behave. It's not good. So specifically breaking with Maezumi in 1983 and going off to found the San Diego Zen Center, which is really the beginning of the journey of Ordinary Mind. Joko was one of Maezumi's leading students. He gave her Dharma transmission, so made her a full teacher in 1978. And 5 years later, the scandals about Maezumi actually came out at Los Angeles Zen Center. Many of the senior students left. Joko amongst them went off to found San Diego Zen Center. And so it's from there that our school starts, our lineage starts, specifically in reaction to the problems of a tradition which sees itself as objective and absolute, and although it was lay, bases within the monastic Zen tradition. And so Joko took steps to radically transform the way that Zen was practiced. We don't need to do the traditional koan curriculum because real life throws us up far more vital questions which reach into our own lives in a way that we struggle to, going through a formal story that's maybe 1,000 years old. Very wonderful if I can connect with it. But I don't need to go there. I just need to experience the stresses, the having my insides ripped apart that is part of my own life. The real issues of my own life, life as it is for me, here, now, that is the basis. So that's kind of the way that the Rinzai tradition transforms itself within Joko's teaching. And because life as it is always multidimensional and present, is there any particular breakthrough which I'm going to make? This is where we start to relate to the Soto side again, about just sitting, just what life brings me. I'm not looking for anything spectacular transformation. I'm not looking for thunder to sound and, clouds to part or anything. I sit and I sit and I sit. And of course, one of the reasons that Yasutani founded the Sambo Kyodan school back in the 50s was that he felt that in Japan, Soto had become, effectively moribund. Lots of little family business teachers, father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son, who were effectively funeral directors. That's what they did. Buddhism promised traditionally some aspect of reincarnation or journey to the Pure Land or whatever. And so, however they lived, Japanese people died as Soto Buddhists and were buried by Soto priests. This is rubbish. This isn't Zen. This isn't spiritual insight. And so he very self-consciously brought in the Rinzai struggle, hard work aspect. But again, Soto is a wonderful, great tradition, and we're not funeral directors. We're not in the family business. We are just sitting. What real illumination can be gained from just sitting? Well, one of the things that Dogen, the founder of Soto, stresses is what we can call mindfulness, what we can call awareness, that we bring care. We bring care to every aspect of life, scrubbing the floor, picking up dust, arranging things, exactly how we pick up the incense, exactly how we light it, exactly how it sits in the bowl. This wonderful precision, absolute precision of ritual. So what Joko realised and this is actually utter brilliance, is that exactly the same applies to each moment of our everyday lives. We don't need to be perfectly centering the incense in the bowl. We just simply pay attention, brushing our teeth. We show objects and people around us care appropriately in how we arrange our lives, in how we relate to other people. That this is exactly analogous to the care we take over ritual. And there's always this dialogue in Zen between special and not special. And one of the great, watchwords of Zen is nothing special. And then, of course, in Japan they built great monasteries, richly embroidered cloths, marvellous sculptures. And it starts, this is obviously the special bit, isn't it? Oh no, it's nothing special. No. And in a sense, all we're doing is erasing that line. A very Zen gesture. Monastic lay, cross it out. It's all life, nothing special. And so that's what Joko did. She stopped shaving her head, she stopped wearing her robes, she took the Buddha off the altar, they stopped chanting. Basic zazen, and take that out into your everyday life. I've had this wonderful experience, Joko. It's changed suddenly I see the world entirely differently. Yes, how's your relationship with your mother? Bringing it back and back and back, because obviously so many of our problems are to do with family, friends. In fact, my childhood is still having it, whatever. And it's exactly at this level that Joko asks us to engage with our lives. What is making us resist? What is making us pull away? What is making us dissociate? We're saying, yes, but why is this but coming in? Where's the but coming from? What do you want out of Zen practice? This is it. Yes, but I want to be calm. Yes, but I want to feel better. Yes, but. Where's the but coming? Sit with the but. The but is a koan. Sit with it. Well, if only this would happen. Yes. And then what? Where would that get you? Back and back and back. And we just reflect. Life as it actually is. Because it's real. And of course we dissociate. And of course we turn away. And that's the practice. That's part of the fun. But so much of our practice is just noticing. Just paying attention to when we're not paying attention. And setting this up as habit. As repetitive as coming back and back and back and back and back. Joko's teaching comes to us in its own particular frames. I've said out of that moment of a turning away from what was not quite the monastic tradition that came from Japan. And so it led her to express it in very particular ways. So much of the traditional form and a lot of the traditional language she rejected or just didn't use, although it's still there in its way. But there are still issues, I think, problems. Rabbit holes, pit traps, easy ways for the really serious and well-intentioned Zen student, such as myself, to fall down. And I think maybe with the next part of this talk, probably in a couple of weeks' time, we'll begin to talk about those in a little bit more detail. But I'll finish with the thought that this is about seeing through me versus world. It's not about rejecting the world. It's not about a different world. It's about feeling this world. And there's this cliche that, oh well, if everything's special, nothing is. Yeah, but what Joko is saying, and what Zen says, is the other way around, and meaning it 100% seriously. If nothing is special, everything is special. Every being, every object, every moment of this life, because there is nothing else. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. So when nothing is special, everything is special. And that is ordinary mind.